It's time now for the Premier Podcast, the official real estate video podcast of Premier Realty Group of West Tennessee. We have 3 offices to serve you in McKenzie, Paris, and Huntingdon. Online at prealtygroup.com. Now, let's get started with today's Premier Podcast.
Welcome back to the Premier Realty Group podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Green, the marketing director for Premier Realty Group. My co-host is Garry Wicker, our principal broker in the Paris office. Garry, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Good morning, Kelly.
We're going to talk about something we've never talked about today, and that is staging.
That is correct. We have not talked about it.
Never brought that up on the podcast, and we've got just the person to do it. She is a certified interior decorator and one of our premier agents, Amanda Visser. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Let's get right into it. Before we talk furniture staging, I guess define staging and then let's talk clutter.
Well, staging is just making sure everything looks orderly. Each room is defined as to its purpose by what you have in it. And then clutter is just everything's everywhere. You got too much of some things and not utilizing your space good.
You've been in my house, huh?
But I guess that's where you have to start. When you get a new listing or when you list your home, the clutter's got to go first before you really focus on the so-called staging, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
What's the best way to explain that to the seller when you walk into the home as the agent and you see a lot of clutter in front of you? How do you tell them in a not-so-subtle way to get rid of it all?
I just lay it on the line in the aspect of we want to get the best dollar for your home as quick as possible. And one of the ways that you can do this, and it's inexpensive, is just cut down on everything sitting around on the counters and piles of things and remove some furniture. And I just kind of tell them, if you want to get it sold quickly and not have a lot of complaints, then here are some things that you can do.
Yeah, and it really, I guess, and Gary's talked about this before, you really have to take the personalization out of it. I mean, is it to the point where you take pictures off walls? How much do you declutter?
Right. I don't believe that removing family portraits off the wall is a must. It's more in the taste of the seller. We need to remove the home of all of the maybe colors and patterns and dated things that a buyer just is going to walk in and get boggled by instead of seeing the home for its potential.
Before we really get into the details, how important is staging on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very, very important?
I would say at least 9.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about specifics. When you're getting all the clutter out of the way and the clutter is gone and now you focus on furniture and colors and patterns, how do you make sure it looks the way you want it to look? Because when a potential buyer comes in, that's not what it's going to look like when they buy it or if they buy it. So how do you know? Do you try to make it as mass appeal as possible?
Yes.
Yeah.
You just want to neutral things down. Bold colors are not the best choice. Starch white is not the best choice because it just looks too sterile and dated, honestly. So your wall color, blues and greens can still be considered neutral, so they're usually okay as long as they're not really bright.
Yeah.
Wallpaper, if at all possible, if it's got roosters or sunflowers or a big plaid pattern or roses or big stripes in burgundy and hunter green, you really need to get rid of it. We actually just had a home inspector give us a good tip, and that is for every $1,000 in perceived correction or updates, the buyer's going to turn around and ask for $3,000 off the purchase price. So it's important.
Yeah.
But some of the lesser expensive things people can do, check your shower curtains. Do they pull, if you've got a pistachio-colored toilet, you can pull anything together with artwork and shower curtains, and towels. Light fixtures, if they're antique brass with that wood paneling look and then the little lattice wicker looking stuff that was on those, you can buy a really pretty ceiling fan at Lowe's for $100 to $150 and really update it.
A few minor, inexpensive changes going in are going to help you in the long run coming out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things when I'm talking to folks and we're talking about updates. There are some updates that you can do to a house that you'll never get the money back out of. And then there are some which can be very relatively inexpensive, which will make a huge difference in their return. And the point that Amanda brought out a minute ago about the $1,000 in repairs actually turning into $3,000 in concession. I'd never heard that number before, and I was quite shocked by it. But of course, that's what he does, and that makes a whole lot of sense. That if I'm asking to do repairs, I'm probably going to overthink it and think, well, if it's going to be this kind of repair, then I probably need to put this much money into it, and it can really get into be a big deal when you're actually negotiating repairs or even a price change.
Yes, we witness that a lot.
Right,
when,
we do.
When negotiating offers.
Right.
Talk odors for a second, whether it's smoke odors or pet odors, cats, dogs. I mean, they leave behind a smell. Mm-hmm. How can you get that out of the house while you're still living in the house and people are going to be coming through taking a look at your house?
The answer does not lie in the more candles, the better.
Yeah, because candle odors can be a negative as well.
Very much so. I mean, you either walk in and you want to smell nothing, really.
Yeah.
Or just a slight scent. Fresh baked cookies, that little suggestion is true. People enjoy walking in and smelling something cooking. But get your carpets cleaned or removed if necessary. Mm-hmm. Carpet is one of the lesser expensive floorings to replace. If it's wrinkled, get it restretched. It's only about $100 to do that. If you have a junk room, clear it out. Show it as usable space. Put a little office in there. Again, that's something not that expensive. Just rent for a little bit. Go down to Rent-A-Center or some other place that rents furniture and put something in that room for a few weeks.
Okay, would you rather have a home with, say, a few furnishings from Rent-A-Center or a vacant home that you're showing? And, I'll just use Rent-A-Center as an example. I mean, that's one of many places you can purchase furniture or rent furniture for the time being.
Right. Honestly, I think it looks better with
a few things in it,
with some furniture. Mm-hmm. That way, people don't have to guess. If they see furniture in it, they can kind of compare theirs in their mind and know if theirs is going to fit.
Okay. What about lighting? How important? How crucial? I'm not a big fan of going into a dark home.
Right, and it doesn't look good as a seller.
Yeah.
If the buyer goes in there and they or I can't get lights to turn on, they start wondering, are there electrical problems or are they just burnt light bulbs?
Yeah. Paintings or wall hangings or decorations or accessories, do's and don'ts.
Again, if it is kind of original to the home, if it's, I hate to throw the brand name out there that people used to be wild about and have their pictures on the wall.
Home interior.
Yes. Yeah, if it's frou-frou, just keep it in that traditional, timeless, or slightly updated modern.
No velvet Elvis, no dogs playing poker.
Right, right. So, yeah, neutral colors, tasteful, what was the word you used a while ago? Kind of universal things that more people are going to like, not so specialized and specific.
Okay, let's move outside. How important is landscaping?
It's pretty important. You want to have clear access to the sidewalks. You don't want it covering up your windows, so trim everything down, pull the weeds, put down some fresh mulch. That always crisps things up.
Yeah.
Check out your front door if it's all scratched up. If you can't afford a new one, just sand it down and put some more paint on there. Sidewalks, if they're cracked, that doesn't look good. But if they're dirty, it looks even worse. So get a good pressure washer to come out and clean that up.
Talk about traffic flow in the house.
Okay, so if you have furniture just everywhere or too much furniture, you want to check that everything is facing, if there's an accent wall, if there's a fireplace or television, you want your furniture seated to where people can talk to each other as well as see the fireplace or the television or whatever that accent is in the room.
Yeah.
And you want to have it set up also to where people can get up and leave the room without having to walk in front of several other people to do so.
I always know a home is too cluttered when I go in to photograph a home with our tripod, and if I can't get the tripod through the home easily, I know there's probably too much. You can have too much furniture in a home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it can be nice furniture, but it could just be too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I go back to the old adage, less is more.
Gotcha.
Yep, clean and simplified and reduced. Kitchen counters are another really easy area to just put everything away, put it in a box, put it in the garage, show that you have useful space, not a bunch of little appliances lined up on the counter.
How many times do we see interiors on an MLS a listing and the countertops are just covered in stuff? And, that to me, that's the first thing. I know you live in a house. I mean, we do too. We live in ours, and there's a lot of times I want to go through and just wipe everything clean. But, at the same time, once you put it up for sale, you need to be aware of those things. And clutter on counters, to me, just says, I didn't have time to make this look homey for the next buyer.
So when staging, first start with the clutter, and then focus on maybe the smaller things like accessories and decorations, and then move on up to the bigger things like landscaping and furniture?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Just slowly scale it back until you've got something someone's going to walk into and not be distracted or tripping over things.
And keep it all as neutral as possible.
Yes. And another easy thing to do, because most people have some landscaping out there, they can go rob and clip and put in a little vase and stick it on
From somebody else's yard?
No. Never. No, from their own yard.
Right.
And just put it on the counter or the dining room table or a coffee table, and it just really adds a little pizzazz and touch of awe. Gotcha.
Any final thoughts or questions for Amanda on staging?
I had something a minute ago and it just completely left me. But it is important. It's one of those things where, I know what it was. I would say if you're not sure, call somebody. Amanda be glad to talk to you about what to do. There are other interior designers out there who'd be happy to come in and just do a walkthrough for you and give you some ideas of what to do. It's really surprising to me how much staging does make a difference. You can go into HGTV and watch all the shows, especially the flipping shows, and when they get ready to sell them, and they stage them. There's a reason they're staging them. It's not, it'd be just as easy for them and probably a lot cheaper to have an open house with an empty house than it would be to come in and do the staging and spend that extra money. But it's got to be there for a reason, and we see it more times than not. If a house is staged properly, it's going to sell a lot quicker than one that's not staged properly.
Yeah, and it pays off in the long run.
Pays off in the long run.
Yeah, you touched on a good point that I actually meant to say, and that's get another eye in there.
Right, absolutely.
We get so used to what our homes look like.
Yeah, and that's true of agents too, because we'll walk through one and we go through so many that once we look through it, we've kind of got and we get focused. It's kind of like when we were talking to Bob a couple of weeks ago. Bob looks for one thing, I look for something else, and because that's my profession, we get focused in on that more than what we would, coming in and making those suggestions. So get another set of eyes in there to help you with that staging.
Absolutely. And to contact Amanda, you can find all of her contact information on our website at prealtygroup.com. Amanda Visser, thanks for being on the podcast
You're
again.
very welcome. Thanks
Great
for having
job.
me.
Thanks, Garry.